Bitcoin emergency update. It looks like we've come towards the end of this corrective trend, and it's likely that Bitcoin is going to roll over and make a new local low. So we're going to be on high alert because we've seen this chart pattern before last year, April, and on a more micro scale, it's looking like it's unfolding again. So let's dive straight into Bitcoin to see what's happening. Before I do, I actually want to read you a quote from my book, which you can now actually download for free in the description. It's actually chapter number 2. I always start the chapters with a quote. And this one's from Warren Buffett, and it's really, really important because it's relevant to today. Rule number 1, never lose money. Rule number 2, never forget rule number 1. Now, with trading, it's inevitable you're going to lose money. It's the cost of doing business. However, we can mitigate losses using stop losses, capital exposure, XYZ, but also being able to prepare ourselves for an high probable outcome before it occurs. In other words, with Bitcoin today, before it moves down, we can anticipate the move based on probability. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So let's dive into Bitcoin. So what I want you to do, first of all, we'll just zoom out, right? Really, really zoom out. It's a daily chart. We're looking at a macro viewpoint. Now, there's a particular chart pattern that's unfolding that I saw. It's actually one of my first ever videos on YouTube, is this particular chart pattern over here. Right, this is called an ending fifth wave diagonal, and it's normally preceded by quite an aggressive move to the downside. And my first ever YouTube videos was like in this region over here. Now down here, on a more micro scale, much more micro, we're seeing something very, very similar, and is likely we're going to get one more move to the downside. And that's what we're going to focus on today. So now let's just zoom into more of the recent data. So with Bitcoin, it's really, really important just to stack the odds in your favor. When we're just looking at it, let's just forget it's Bitcoin for a second and just look at the chart pattern. What do we have on our hands? Well, we've clearly had since November last year a movement down, some type of correction, a movement down. And what have we had for the last couple of months? Well, this is a corrective structure, So if it's similar to this over here, what should we anticipate? Well, more than likely is another leg to the downside. And that's what we want to prepare ourselves for. So again, if you're a long-term holder of Bitcoin, just be prepared for a bit of a drawdown. If you're shorting and trading Bitcoin, well, now might be a good time to consider a short trade. And if you're long Bitcoin, to be maybe locking in some profits depending on where you entered and everything else. So now let's just look at this, right? So the main thing I wanted to get across today is, well, two things. One is, this is clearly, when you see overlapping waves like this, where the waves are literally going into the previous wave length, like they're overlapping, right? They're not impulsive. Impulsive is like this, where this wave is not overlapping into this. That's not the case with Bitcoin. It's a corrective structure. And that just shows us that there's a lot of selling pressure and the bulls are not back in town yet. So we should anticipate further moves to the downside. But what really I wanted to pay special attention to is this over here. Now, I don't know if it's really clear to you. It's a bit clearer on the lower degree time frame. But like we saw April last year, a big move up, an overlap, a big move up, an overlap, and a move up. This is often a ending fifth wave diagonal. So what, if you're shorting Bitcoin, if it goes below this swing low over here, that would be a very strong confirmation that this local high is likely going to hold. We'll probably get some type of retest, which is like a pullback, and then an aggressive move to the downside. That's more than likely what's going to occur with Bitcoin. What else gives me a bit more confidence in shorting Bitcoin is, actually, before I show you, how would you like access to my charts? Because one of the key things I'm going to show you, in fact, let me show it to you first. In the top left-hand corner, I keep my weekly, this is how I have my trade set up, as in my charts. In the top left, which is this chart, is the weekly chart. And I use something called the Stochastics RSI Momentum Indicator. And what's really, really powerful about this and helpful is when it's above here, in this zone, above this black line, it tells us that the weekly high of Bitcoin is near and that we should anticipate overall sideways to down for a few weeks. And if you would like literally this exact chart, you can actually now get it for free. It's in the description link below. If you go here, you can get my charts. You get them for quite a few different coins, and you can actually either view only or you can actually upload them into your own trading view, play with the settings, and you get all the Elliott wave counts as well. So with Bitcoin, we've got something called a double time frame momentum as well. Like, what does that mean in English? Well, like I was just showing you with the momentum, if we look at the last time Bitcoin's momentum, the blue line crossed below the red, it was up here. And what happened to the price? Well, it was pretty much sideways to down for quite a few months, right? So what is happening with the momentum over here? Well, it indicates we're likely to have another local high, right? Another local high. So that's one momentum time frame. That's on a weekly. We call that the higher degree trend. Higher degree trend, which is valuable information. However, when we pop out of this and go into the daily chart, right? The daily chart where every bar represents one day, look at the momentum. Now you can see that the momentum has been following the rhythm quite nicely. You know, the blue line crosses below the red. Now, these are all just little corrective moves, as in these little moves here end up being corrections. But it will tend to also coincide with the final top and then a big move to the downside. Now, we don't know if that's going to be the case, but we've got another bearish reversal, blue line below the red. So that tells us we're going to be on high alert for a local daily top. But because of the weekly position as well, it may last a number of weeks. And if it does, what is the typical price range? Well, it's down here, right? Down here. You know, we're talking potentially, 15 to maybe even 13,000 range if it really goes and finishing off this bigger correction. Now, to finish on a slightly more positive, these cycles and trends happen in all markets and all time frames. And it's just a psychological mood of people buying and selling. And it's just natural human emotions, fear and greed playing out. So what typically unfolds, and again, this is really forecasting, but I'm just going to show you this because I think you'll find it really, really valuable, is I'll show it to you like this. After a big A, B, C style correction, and if it finishes down here, and it is an if, it's not confirmed yet, what typically unfolds over the coming months and years, it might be 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, 24 months, etc., is the price would continue above the former high, something like this, eventually, and going to new highs. But short term, the immediate days and coming weeks, we should anticipate sideways to down. Longer term, I call it the Michael Saylor strategy. Long term, years and if not decades, with us, 12 months, 24 months, where we're talking about Bitcoin potentially hitting all-time new highs. So don't be too panicked. It'll be crazy for the market if this downturn occurs, because it'll be panic mode. That's just natural fear and greed playing out. But these corrections like this, A, B, C style corrections, they are so common on all time frames. But now, again, remember the quote. Rule number 1, never lose money. And rule number 2, never forget rule number 1 from Warren Buffett. Now, again, just to manage your portfolio, because even though this is highly likely going to occur the way we're seeing it, highly probable, it's not certain. We can never have certainty, but we can have high probability. And if you can go with the probability time and time again, then you become the casino. And as we all know, the casino always wins. So if you want a copy of the book, you can download it. I want to finish with another quote, actually. I want to just finish with another quote. And by the way, if you got value out today, I would appreciate if you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification. It's chapter 5. So the challenge with trading that I found is sometimes there's too much information. There's thousands of indicators. There's thousands of different strategies. There's different chart patterns, X, Y, Z. But I like this quote that should serve you very, very well. And you'll find the more successful an individual is, they tend to apply this. This one's from Leonardo da Vinci. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So what we saw today was 2 main factors. You can add other factors. I normally use 4, but we focus on 2 today. Double time frame momentum, right? So we know, right, that's pointing down right now with Bitcoin. And then we're looking at pattern position, right? A, B, C correction. And this overlapping recent wave structure over the last couple of months, that indicates to us that we're in a corrective nature and that we should see a continuation to the downside. So we go, right, we just go with that edge. So if you're shorting the market or protecting yourself from the downside, just take the action that you need to take. So join me tomorrow, because we've got some very interesting things that we're going to cover tomorrow. But the markets are in a very interesting position, and now is the time to be on high alert, whether you're shorting the market or longing the market.